Yo, what's happening, fellow DIYers? It's Scott. Welcome back to OG DIY. And I'm sitting here next to the LX, arms up a little high, way high. I'm not a short guy, nothing against short guys. But I got the vehicles up on jack stands. Got a beautiful day. Finally, the cold snap's cleared, and I have one more job I need to get accomplished on this LX from a maintenance perspective. And that is doing the transmission complete drain and refill. So when I say complete drain and refill, I've gone all over the internet to figure out what is maybe the best way to do a transmission service. And I can't tell you that this is the best, it's the way I'm going to use. But I'm going to drain the tranny fluid, and I expect to get anywhere from 3 to 5 quarts out of that effort. I'm going to carefully watch how much is coming out. So having a drain pan that's got the side markings that tell you what's coming out will help you in this service, at least in my humble opinion. And then I'm going to drop the pan because I've got a new pan gasket I purchased from Blau Parts in addition to fluid from Blau Parts, mainly a German supplier. But anyway, they do Toyota, Nissan, Honda, they do all vehicles. So I got the red fluid that goes, pink or red fluid that goes into the tranny service here. And so I'm dropping the pan. I expect to find another quart or so in the pan itself. I'm gonna fully clean all of that out. There's some magnets in there to catch metallic debris. I'm gonna clean all that out, so hopefully it'll be spick and span by the time I'm done with that. Then the pan goes back up, mounted completely back up. I'm gonna fill it for the amount that came out, right? So that's fill number one. And then I'm gonna go to the front of the vehicle and pull off the return radiator cooling hose that goes up to the front radiator cooler. I'm gonna pull that off and stick on a 1/2-inch vinyl hose and put that down into a gallon jug, empty gallon jug. That way we can cycle that dirtier fluid out into that gallon, 3 quarts at a time into that gallon jug using that front radiator return vinyl hose connection method. And we can continue to cycle through that. So I will ultimately put in, about 10 or 12 quarts, and we'll be cycling out those quarts and get to the final fill amount. So I'm going to do that in a total of 3 times. And then there's a process that I'm going to use to get the transmission up to its appropriate temperature. It has to be up to an appropriate temperature. So once that's done and we get it up to temperature, then we're going to do the final sort of drain, which is a trickle. And you'll see this as we get through the video. Once it gets to sort of a trickle, when you're at operating temperature, then you're ready to finish the job. You tighten up all the bolts and you're done. But for me, the way I'm going to do that temperature check, for a Toyota Lexus product, there's a way to do it where you shift it in and out of gears, put it into temperature checking mode, which puts like a D up on the dash, and that tells you if that D's not flashing, that you're ready to do the check of the tranny at the appropriate temperature. I happen to have an OBD tool that I purchased. I think if you're doing car service, it's really helpful. If you get a code thrown for whatever reason, you can go into your system and read that code and remove the code. But it also does this. It tells you what the temperature is of your transmission fluid. So I have a launch OBD2 reader that I'll share with you in a minute as I show you everything that we're going to use to get this job done, that I purchased on the worldwide interweb through that crusher of all retailers, destroyer of retailers that is known as Amazon. And so that's what I'm going to use to make sure my operating temperature is appropriate to finalize out the job. So with that, now this is already up on jack stands. I've already taken the front bash plates off and the plastic belly pan that's just in front or near the transmission protection bracket that we're going to take off. So we're going to take that bracket off. I'll show you taking that off. and then we'll get into the service itself. But I also wanted to share, I'm going to show you all the supplies we're going to use, that I've never done this before. This is a 100% YouTube education moment for me, where I've looked at, as I said, numerous videos, 200 series Land Cruisers, 100 series Land Cruisers, 100 series LXs. This is an LX, which is a Land Cruiser. Just about everything, in addition to non-Toyota and Lexus products, just to get a sense for how others are doing it. So I spent a lot of time trying to research this thing, but I got a little time, so it's okay, you know. I think you can do this pretty easily in the garage as a weekend warrior, as long as you got the parts and pieces and you know, sort of the rudimentary tools to pull it off. But you be the judge of that by the time we get done here. So let's take a look at what it's going to take to get this job done. All right, so transmission fluid number one. This is the Toyota manufactured OEM tranny fluid. And my approach would be to use this first to fill the tranny back up after I drop the pan, and top it off with the remaining fluid here, which is the really expensive fluid. I don't know, it's not that much more, that I bought. It's Ravenol, that's super whammy, that comes from Germany. And this fluid's super perfect. It fits all the same requirements. Again, this is the Toyota transmission fluid, and that's what's recommended all over the internet to use. I just happened to jump onto this site and was studying a bit about fluids and elected to go with this one. So this is the one that's recommended. And I'm going to use, for the up front portion that I was telling you about, you got to take 3 quarts at a time. So this is the gallon jug that we're using. I've got it marked off. This is going to be the vinyl tubing that's connected to that lower transmission cooler up front, at the front of the vehicle. I mentioned the OBD tool. This is it right here, called Launch, and it'll do just about every vehicle ever made in terms of all kinds of scans. And this was under $200, and I've used it many times. And then you got to get your protection products here in terms of you know, your rubber gloves or glasses. These are some heavy duty gloves if you got to get your knuckles close to any things that will bite into your skin. Good set of wrenches and sockets. Here's an inch-pound torque wrench, and this is going to be used because it's inch-pounds is the designation to put those bolts back on for the pan, all around the pan, so we'll get to that. And you do need some crush washers to pull this off. So get your crush washers ready to go. Oh, and here is, this again from Blau Parts, that is the filter on the inside of there. That's your actual transmission filter with an O-ring, and the transmission gasket, the pan gasket. And frankly, I'm not sure what those are yet. I'm going to get everything going and get the parts pulled down and the draining going. These look like these might be, these probably go in these holes. Yeah, that's what it is. These metal pieces go inside these holes. So that's your automatic transmission filter with gasket. And that, I hope, will get the job done. So let's get going. Since we've already got the belly pans and all that off, that's already been taken off, we need to get this transmission guard. This is essentially a transmission guard. It's got 4 bolts. We're going to pull that off. And this is 14 millimeter. Now, the next thing we're going to do is there is a plate covering the refill port. So transmission is now, this is the belly pan here, and we get the drain port right there. And then up here, see this? It's a sort of a narrow, and there's some foam under here. That is, we're going to take that off, and that covers the drain port for the transmission. So, not drain, refill port. So I got to get all those. There's 1, 2, 3, looks like 3 maybe. Is there a bolt on this side? Yeah, it looks like 3 bolts that I'm going to pull off there. And they look like they probably are 10 millimeter. So I'm going to get those off. And this is the front drive shaft coming off the transfer case. So you don't got a lot of room here. Unfortunately, it's not very tight. So there's number 1. I got another video on the channel where I did, I greased all of the drive shafts, all of the Zert fittings, and I can tell, I wasn't sure whether or not I was perhaps overfilling, over-greasing a little bit. And I can see on the bell housing and along here, right where this Zert fitting is on this front drive shaft, after use of the vehicle for a while, you can tell I may have put slightly a little bit too much in. Wow, it's loose. Okay, there we go. There's that plastic cover. Let me see if I can get you a good look here now of, I believe, there it is right there. See that? My finger's on it right there. I believe that's 24 millimeter, and that is the refill port right there. So we're going to unloosen this refill port because that's the best practice. So before we unloosen the drain, unloosen the refill port first, because if for some reason that's ridiculously over tight, then you're out of luck. You will have drained your pan and you will not be able to refill your transmission. So we're going to get a appropriate tool in here and get that loosened up. There we go. Oops. Okay. There we go. That feels like it's not catching any more ratchet, so to speak. Let's see. There we go. Yeah, and no fluid at all coming out of there, so. Okay, I got that finger tight, which is good. Now, we can get that Allen wrench and we can drain the fluid. Got that 24 millimeter loose up there, which was good, and I think we've got a 5 millimeter, I'm guessing, but I'm gonna go take a look. Grab that, put the rubber gloves on, and drain this. Okay, keep a rag close as you pull this off of here. I got cardboard underneath the drain pan. And there we go. Yeah, I dropped it. Look at that, I dropped that copper. I think it's copper. Came right off of there and fell down. So This doesn't give me confidence that there's going to be a whole lot of flow coming out of here. But there's a standpipe in there. A standpipe is a pipe that goes up about this high from there up. And so you're supposed to put another, I think it's 5mm again up into that socket one more time, and we're gonna turn it and that standpipe will come out. I'm gonna let some of this fluid come out first, and then we'll get to that in a minute. What happens here? Yeah, oh, I can feel that. Yeah, let's see. The standpipe's coming out. You can see it's blue. There we go. That's a better flow. So what this is at this level, the pan would have very little oil in it. With this standpipe in there, there's at least that much when it's sitting cold, which, I don't know, what's that, an inch above the threads? That's probably 2 inches above the threads. It's filled with fluid. So that's what that is. That standpipe is out. We're gonna put that back in after we drop the pan and get the pan cleaned up. So that really helped the flow quite a bit. These are 10mm, all of these, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Looks like there are about 11. Let's see, we'll make sure. There's one. Let's put these in one spot. See if we get some seepage when this comes down. Well, you can tell they're not very torqued at all. And I believe these are the inch-pound torque, so it's not foot-pound, it's inch-pound, which means we need to be very careful when we torque these back up. Let me see, I'm going to do these backwards first. There is one back there. So we got one here. Do that corner. All right, let me get my hand on here just in case. Last bolt out, but we're certainly not going to go crazy here. Let's see. So this is a screwdriver. I wanted to go easy first instead of pry bar hard out the back. There we go. Wow, that's a lot more. That's amazing to me. The drain standpipe and all that stuff that came out and how much fluid we got out, which was about, I read it off of here, the first mark here is 5 quarts, and it looked like it was about 3.5 quarts in total off of here. But there is a lot of fluid still in here, and she's loose. So there's no question in my mind, when you just drain out from the drain itself, you're not getting what you think you might be getting in terms of a full drain. You're just not getting a full drain. Here's the filter for the transmission, so that we're going to take the screws off of that. There's 4 screws here, and there's an O-ring attached. So we'll take that off, discard it. We'll compare this one with the new one just to make sure we get the right, obviously we get the right part. And there, my friends, is all of the various wizardry when you look up through here. That transmissions are crazy to me. I'm not sure what the schedule is on when these fluids wear out. This one's supposed to be sealed and never change, which I don't believe in at all. It's kind of like when the manufacturer tells you do an oil change at 10,000 miles. Don't. You got to cut that in half and do it at 5,000. I don't believe this is permanent. There's in my humble opinion, I'm no scientist. I'm not Toyota. They know what they're doing. But permanently sealed. Maybe that's for 150,000 miles until you trade in your car, or you know, at some point going back to them and buying another car. God forbid they would be that manipulative, but maybe all the brands are, and Toyota just happens to hold together a little longer. Yeah. We're up past 5 quarts now in here between the drain and drop in the pan. We're up past 5 quarts. It's interesting here. Take a look at this. Here's the pan. These down in here are magnets at the bottom of the pan to pull any metallic sludge. And I'm looking in here and I don't see any sparkle at all, which is good. There's that standpipe we put back in, and so you can see that standpipe where it sits in terms of how much fluid will be in this above the pan gasket. So it's an interesting way to handle space management rather than having the pan drop way down further. That little device right there keeps a tight pan, but allows enough transmission fluid to be in the system. And again, I'm looking closely at everything that's coming off of here to see whether or not I've got any significant, what I would say, something I can see, discern, that has a metal glint or sparkle of metal. I'm not really, maybe. This vehicle's got 86,700 miles. And if I'd had my preference, I would have done this change at something more like 60,000 miles, because that's the schedule I'm going to hold to for the future, even though it says sealed for life. I'm not buying the sealed for life game. It's interesting, Blau Parts gives you a full package. Remember, we took that 5mm drain off the bottom? That looks like that's the gasket right there. It goes with this kit. So that's the new filter. Clean as a whistle inside of there. And then here is the new gasket. So my guess is you can pull this gasket off. Yep. It covers the edge of the pan. There's a little bit of dirt on the outside of the gasket. Interesting. All right, that's the old one. All right, one correction to make. Blau Parts does send you the exact amount. I went through a couple of these dropped out as I opened up the bag. So this is exactly 11, which is what this holds. So maybe it's for those poor fellows that throw this out and don't see that these can be reused. These look like they're fully reusable. There's not much of a torque on them at all. So I'm actually going to hang on to this. Now, the other thing I wanted to share is this is the old filter. It was just 4 10mm, very low torque on them. And, you know, it's in inch-pounds, almost everything. From a torque perspective, I'm going to give you what I think the torque should be. And you look in there, it looks like it's in pretty good shape, I would say. Not very dirty at all. And here's the new one. And the one thing that really jumped out at me is, so this one's got the O-ring on there. when I pulled this one off, no O-ring. So I expect to go get under the truck and see an O-ring sitting there. So let's, this has got an O-ring on it. This is the new one. Let's just check that out. O-ring up in there? Yes, there is. Look at that. So you want to get that O-ring out because you obviously don't want a double O-ring situation, which would be bad, I think, for the fluid flow and the seal that's supposed to be there. Now, I'll also tell you that when I took that filter out, the 4 bolts, I took it off and took it out and pulled it off, another bunch of fluid came out of here. And I wouldn't say, it'd probably be a third of a quart, let's say, but it was a pretty good splash, went around all over the place because I didn't have this positioned just appropriately. I didn't expect it. I should have been expecting it for the amount of videos I've looked at. So you're going to get more out of there when that filter comes out. So just be prepared for that. All right, so we have an O-ring on the new one. That's here. We're going up into this hole, and we have 4 bolts that are going to go up that are going to be 84 inch-pounds, 84 inch-pounds into that hole. Okay, so this will be interesting. Hey, nice. Nicely done. And there we go. Well, you're going to have some rollovers occasionally. Okay, baby, why aren't you going in? "86 inch-pounds. One, two, three. That's 86 inch-pounds. One, two, three. All right. 1, 2, 3. My goodness, I'm going to drop that again. Okay. 1, 2, 3. I'll probably say it numerous times, but it's 65 inch-pounds for the pan bolts, which I gotta tell you, that is really light. Okay. Let's just get a couple in here. Let's see if we can pull that off without too much trouble. In there. Now, if you're careful, you could run these back up, but you've got to be super careful. There we go. Because you torque it once, and you could just do some damage. So I'm gonna go slow and be careful. And I'm going to give myself ample room before it tightens up. I'm going to stop well before it tightens up. And you don't want to cross thread, so you don't want to jam it and spin it at a high speed, because then you got yourself a big problem. Let's see. And I'm ending way before the threads are supposed to grab because I don't want to overdo it. I'm not going to torque them. I'm still just going to hand tighten them because I want to use a pattern to finalize this whole thing. Pattern of sort of back and forth to tighten. So I'm going to do one here, 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 here. One, two, three. Okay, that one's torqued. One, two, three. That's torqued. One, two, three. 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 Let's see. One, two, three. One, two, three. That one's done already. That one's done already. One, two, three. That one's done. One, two, that one's done. That one's done. We're going to take this old washer off. Leave it right here and go get the new one. Before the light goes, I was using this larger pan, and unfortunately in this larger pan, it's not really precise enough for me. There's not enough increments for me to tell how much fluid was being used. So I came and got my littler pan, and this it's a 7-quart pan. It's 6 quarts. This is just below 5, but my garage is tilted. So this is right around 5, I'm thinking. And when I poured it in there, I gotta tell you, it looked pretty damn dirty. Definitely not as good looking as clean transmission fluid is. So that's what came out before we've even run the motor or heated up the transmission to try to get the rest of it out. All right, now that we've got everything sealed up, we're ready to do the purges to get the old transmission fluid out. So I gotta load 6 quarts into the tranny. And the way I'm gonna do it is with this bad boy right here. That's from Orion Motor Tech, and it is a transmission fluid or fluids. You can put fluid in or take fluid out. And it's compressed air. I'm gonna use a compressor to do this. Fairly simple. I went on their YouTube page and watched it in use from a gentleman that demonstrated how to use it. It comes with a whole bunch of various pieces that apply to whatever type vehicle. This screws right up to the transmission pan and or can be hooked over the refill port with these little hooks, right? You put that hook over the refill port and this is transmission fluid going in. Again, it was under $100. It made sense to me. This, by the way, is the one for Toyota and Lexus product. That's just right for the transmission drain pan plug. So this made sense to me because I'm going to do tranny services on that little sports car right there, that Jeep, that van, that Sprinter van, and that LandCruiser right there. So I got a number of vehicles I need to use this for, and this is to me is much better than using the hand pump. I use the hand pump, transfer pump that you can buy for under 12 bucks from Walmart, but it's a bit of a pain in the butt. So I'm going to put this in first, drain out the first 3 quarts, get more of this is coming. I'm going to use that as the cycling fluid, and then as soon as I'm comfortable with the first application, first or second application, I'm going to end with this, so that I'm hoping in total the 12 quarts that the tranny takes will be principally this synthetic higher end Ravenol transmission fluid. So let me close this off. I think I've got this solved. There we go. Sweet. Looks like the 60s, man. By the way, I thought I would show you. It's really tough to actually see through the plastic. And so you just take a flashlight, right? Point it in behind it, and then you can really see. We're almost done here with the 6th quart, and it gives you a sense of what we're talking about here. You can fill this thing up. It takes about 2 gallons to fill it up, but I'm going to stop after this 6th quart because that's precisely what I took out. And then this is what we're going to put back in. That's not going in as far as I would have liked. Let's see if that works. Turn. That's just a pressure relief valve. And you can see I got fluid going in. And this is 6 quarts I expect to put in. Can't see, but I got the line right there. And I got the machine over there. And so it's pumping it in. Well under 1 quart. Well under, like, no, okay. Let me shut you off, baby. Got some dripping going on here. Not bad. Man, that works so much. It goes in faster, this pump for sure, than it extracts. So there's kind of how we finished. I'm gonna clean this up and I'm gonna finger tight, not crank it tight, but I'm gonna put the fill port nut back up there so that we're ready to start the motor. We're underneath the front of the car. Here's the bottom of the radiator here, and this is transmission fluid exiting back to the transmission. That's transmission fluid going in. This is transmission exiting back. Maybe I can show it a little bit better here. We're going to take this clip off of here, push that off, then insert that 1/2-inch vinyl hose right across the top of this piece. And this will drain down, 2.5, 3 quarts at a time as we do the, purging out the old fluid that is the next step here. Tough to see. I'm just taking this clamp and pinching it up and moving it a little bit higher up there. I really ought to have some gloves on. Not very smart on my part. see if we got some drips that come out of there. And we do. I kind of want to measure every bit I can get, or every bit of fluid that comes out. Come on, baby. That's a pretty good fit. I gotta thank the folks on YouTube and some of the other videos I've seen about this effort. One gentleman did it on a 200 series LandCruiser and said, get this 1/2-inch vinyl tubing. And in fact, it fits nicely. All right, so I got the marked 3-quart section here. I'm putting it in this pan just in case I get a blowout of some sort of fluid. I'm gonna get in the truck and move it through its gears, start it up, and see what comes of it. Still warming up. I'm gonna call this a first-timer situation. So what happened here is, and look how much tranny fluid got in there. So, and it looks like, as I'm staring at it, it looks like the old colored tranny fluid. All right, here's where we're at. I took 4 quarts out when it exploded out down there. And so I put 4 quarts back in and put them into the pneumatic transmission fluid inputter, or whatever we're calling that thing. But I will say another change that I've made down here, because of the way the first go around, I used this one that's on the passenger side and disconnected it, and very little fluid came out of the vinyl hose that I put up there. Most of the fluid came out of the hose itself that was disconnected, which tells me that's an input line into the coolers. There's 2 transmission fluid coolers, one inside the radiator and another external one down here at the bottom. And fluid's pulsing out of there pretty rapidly, and not much at all coming out of here. So that was the pressure push from the transmission through the system. So I plugged that one back up. I disconnected this one, put the vinyl hose on there. I shouldn't get much in the way of pressure coming out of this line. I should get the fluid coming through this vinyl hose and into this gallon jug. Should. Because I traced this line all the way back up to the top, and I believe that one is actually the return line back to the transmission. So it's a 2017 Lexus LX, and I think what I was looking at online from YouTube is an older 200 series LandCruiser before the generation change that took place. And anyway, so I think Toyota made a change down here. We're going to find out, because I'm going to turn the engine back on, crank it back on, and see what kind of result I get. Do I get it through the vinyl tube, or do I get just a giant gusher again out of that one? Whatever is the case, 4 quarts needs to come out in this cycle. Starting it up. Nice. So it does look like it's filling that one up. That's good. So this is in fact on the driver's side, the return line. That's fun to find that one out. So this is gonna go full tippy top right here, because I took 4 quarts out, and this gallon jug is just short of 4 quarts. So I'm gonna let it overfill a little bit right when I turn the engine off. All right, I'm gonna go turn this off. Looks like pretty clean going in and pretty dirty in the bottle. So yeah, that's cool. So in fact, the LX570 return line is on the driver's side coming out of the bottom of the radiator, not on the passenger side like it is in some older 200 series LandCruisers. Next cycle. That's cleaning up for sure and becoming more red, but still got some dirt in there. Interesting. Some dirt on that side. You see that? Dirt on this left side. It's starting to look like it's trying to get cleaner. Huh, interesting. All right, time to do the cycle again. I'm going to take this and clean it up. And I'm going to need another big gallon or 5-gallon bucket. And this time it's going to be all Ravenol going in, 4 quarts. So I picked up a bucket with the markings on it. And that should help a little bit. All right, what's that look like? Just over 1 gallon. All right, so we're going to put 4 quarts back in to match what just came out. Now, this is the Ravenol. Pull this top up. I've already broken one top. I don't know why it struggles a little bit to come up. There we go. Get a screwdriver up under there. There. All right. Maybe it twists up. No. That is not what I want. So the cool thing about this is that you get a straw, and if you have easy access where you can lift the whole quart up to pour it in, super cool. But if that is not possible, which is the case with this transmission, oh, great. That's not what I wanted. Thing went down in there. Well, that is the opposite of what I wanted. But it's okay, because I can get my extraction straw right down in there. So let's try to demonstrate on another one. Turns out these are pretty finicky, because I've had a situation where I've pulled these tabs and they just ripped right off. And you can see I was having trouble on that first one. Okay. A little screwdriver to help it a bit. I don't know why. So I'm not going to unscrew that top just yet. Let's just see if we can pull it straight back. There we go, straight up. So once you get it there, you just twist it off, sort of. Kind of like that. And then you have a mess. These are definitely not as easy to use as I go through the process with these bottles as just a standard screw top. But I could see their benefit if you could, again, employ that method where you had ability to move the whole bottle to put it into the transmission or whatever, the gear loop. I could probably have used this in the rear gear lube. This is not the right kind of gear oil, but I could probably have lifted it up there had I removed the spare tire. I don't think I could do it on the front differential. So no matter what, for me, these types of bottles are, you know, I got to deal with them and make it work the way I need it to work. I will say, after you do this a few times, it's getting easier. Turn this the other way. Oh, I already did when I was underneath. And I'm going to pop this filler that I was using. Put an extendo tube on here. Turn on the air. Oops. Actually, that goes first. And away we go. All right, gang, I'm at that final spot. I put 4 liters of the Ravenol in, which is the last of it. One, 2, 3. That's 12 foot-pounds. Okay, that's done. All right, so we're torqued up on that 24 millimeter port, and that's the fill port. This is the final measurement we're going to do when we get it up to operating temperature using the OBD tool. So I'm not going to put the guard back on just yet until we get this process done, but I got one more drain to do. I just put in 4 liters, and I'm going to take out 1 US gallon, which should leave me a little bit extra in here so that when it comes time to drain it at the appropriate temperature, we should be in good shape for an adequate drain and tighten up, and then we'll put everything back together and drive away, and we're good to go. All right, here we go. Final drain. All right, time to shut her off. All right, in the vehicle with OBD2 hooked up, and I've got the vehicle specific information in here, and I'm just clicking through on the launch system. So I want transmission, okay. I want to read the data stream. And here, in my case, I just want the auto temp. So we're going to hit OK. And right now we're sitting at 82.4 degrees. So I'm going to hold that information there for a second. I'm going to come over here, and we are going to shift into drive. Shift into neutral. That's not neutral, that's gear select, and go through the gears. We're in first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. Drive, reverse, park. We need that temp to go from between 102 and 115. Right now it's sitting at 86. So we're slowly climbing here, 96.8. All right, a couple more degrees to go here, and we're gonna jump underneath the car and hit that drain leveling bolt, let that out, and it'll move from a flow down to a trickle. And once that we hit that trickle, okay, there we are, 102. So we're gonna get rolling with the next step. That's a problem. Okay, here we go. Done. We're there. All right. All right, friends, that's it. That's the transmission flush, actually drain and refill. I feel like I flushed it because I put, I would say 2 or 3 gallons through the system in total before I put the final fresh transmission fluid into the system. So I feel really good about how this turned out. I got a lot of great experience. It's the first time I've done this job, and things to watch out for along the way. Wow. Safety, man, safety first. Be careful what you're doing. If you're unsure, you know, if you've, like me, you've roamed around on the internet to get the best experience you can before you tackle your job, be sure you're confident to do it. And when you are, get right after it. I was a bit unsure about a few things just in terms of doing it the first time. But once you get rolling, and it's okay here and there to have kind of a maybe an accident moment, as long as it's correctable. For example, when I put the vinyl tubing, the 1/2-inch vinyl tubing on the passenger side return, what I thought was the return back to the transmission from the front of the vehicle, that turned out to not be the return. And it was basically puking fluid directly from the transmission where I had disconnected it. So moving over to the other side on an LX570, I found the return line, and then it worked beautifully. That same technique that I learned on the internet watching others do it worked beautifully. I could cycle transmission fluid through it in due course, you know, take the requisite amount out, measure it, and then put the right amount back in. Now, I will tell you, I had a bit of a bobble from that perspective, and I think it was the first sort of blowout on this when I was using the passenger side, which is the wrong side. Not only did I fill up a jug, I filled up a good chunk of the pan, and at that point it became a little less measurable. And I should have stopped right there, because if I combine that with when I turned it over to the correct side, on the driver's side, and then I had some overflow situations, just a little bit out of the gallon jug. If I add those things up, the cumulative total was enough of a miscalculation on my part that when I put the last of the Ravenol transmission fluid into the system. When I put the truck down on the ground and was rolling it through the gears, and I had my OBD tool hooked up to it to see the temperature, as soon as it got to operating temperature, jumped out, went underneath the vehicle, and then the fill plug, the drain plug that's supposed to, slow to a trickle when you've got it at the right amount in the tranny, I unplugged that drain port and nothing came out. So I went back and remeasured all of my drain fluid, recalculated all of my brand new fill quarts and liters and everything that I had to put in. And I found that I was probably 3 to 4 quarts short in what was required for the transmission. So I went back to really clean, 'cause I had 2 different containers of not only the first round of dirty fluid that came out, but then as I was cycling, it turns out too much through. I also had a relatively very clean jug. And that jug I went back to and extracted the fluid I needed to top off the transmission. So once I topped it off, there was no weirdness in the gears. It was going into gear appropriately. Got that back up to the appropriate temperature and then jumped underneath. Undid the drain port. That is also how you determine whether you're at the right level, assuming once you get your temperature to that operating temperature, which for me is between 102 degrees and 115. I jumped under there, unscrewed it, and it was at a pretty slow trickle already. It was a slow stream, and then was moving to a trickle, and then I tightened it back up and off to the races from there. So, I learned some things. What side is that return port on an LX570? It's not on the passenger side, it's on the driver's side. I learned that I need to be a bit more precise in measuring what comes out and what goes in than I thought I was being. I need to be more precise because you run into some challenges there, right? If you miss one of those marks. And in fact, when I missed that mark and it was light about 3 to 4 quarts, I got in and was doing the shifting to get it up to speed, and it was actually behaving a bit weird. It was sort of, you put it into gear and the acceleration would sort of go up and down again, not like normal, not normal at all. And maybe it was the transmission trying to engage the engine. I'm not sure. I don't have enough background on the workings of a tranny when you've shorted it some transmission fluid to know if that was the exact outcome you were going to get. So, but once I topped that off and fixed that, now it behaves beautifully. Couple other things, make sure that you remember where you're putting washers back on, where your O-rings go, certainly that filter that's in the transmission. Really important. Don't miss those things, in my humble estimation. Really important also when you use a torque wrench to torque appropriately, and I've now learned there should be a specific pattern on how you torque all of the pan bolts. And those pan bolts were in inch pounds, not in foot pounds. So there's a very light hand on those, and then you got to be careful how you torque them all down in a pattern. I used a pattern, I just sort of made it up. I think there's a precise pattern that really exists out there that Toyota recommends. So keep those things in mind. And again, I come back to it was fun for me. I enjoyed doing it, and I'm glad I was able to accomplish it and get it in good shape. I still got to button everything up in terms of putting all the skid plates up underneath and bolt the transmission guard back up and those types of things. But it was fun. Next go around, it's going to be a heck of a lot more easy. I would recommend, I have that pneumatic extractor and injector pump or whatever for the transmission fluid. That is so much easier than using the hand pump. I used a hand pump on the differential fluid and for front transfer case and differential fluid up front, and those videos are on the channel as well. And it's 100% doable, but it's a bit of a pain in the you know what. And I'm gonna not only be doing this transmission, I'm going to be doing the sports car we've got. I'm going to do the Sprinter van we have, and we got a Jeep, and I got an old LandCruiser. All those are going to get the benefit of a change, and I just don't want to have that hand pump to do that. So, so there you have it. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope you got a laugh out of it. For those of you that have done this before and know exactly sort of the missteps I'm sure I was making along the way. And hopefully there's some education for you out there for those of you that are going to try to tackle this yourself, because it's 100% doable. Now, on that scale from me of 1 to 3, first time I've done it, this one's like 2 borderline 3 just because it's new. Next time I do this, I'm going to crank this back down to a 2. And as soon as I get some other cars under my belt, I bet I could get this transmission drain and refill down to like a 1 in terms of personal complexity for me. Once you have the steps down, not that challenging. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you had a good time. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe, and there will be more videos to come that is OG DIY, where we do it ourselves and try to save some money. All right, be good. See you soon. Bye-bye.